Hey, I'm Jim. Yeah, Maria Wessel and I did the Blackstone and Ogilvie River this summer. So I wasn't expecting the camera. So things got a little, when I walked in, things got a little more nervous. But I'm still staying with what we talked about, Paul. So, all right. Sorry, inside joke. um, so. So we were on the river for 11 days, got out the 11th day, and we've done, this was our fourth river trip up in the Yukon Territory, and it was a little more difficult than what we're used to. The slides don't do it justice in the sense of some of the quote-unquote white water. It was probably a class 2 mostly, but that being a lot of sweepers, and the river is pretty technical in that sense, and that was a little above what we've done in the past. And trying to take the photographs, and like we have tons of pictures of all the other trips we've done, and this one's a lot of pictures like this when we stop and when we're resting and so on. But it was a lot of fun. Hopefully this will work. If you can pick out where we are. So we took the ferry up to Valdez, and then drove the top of the little highway up to Dawson, and then up the Dempster Highway. We met our friends up at Tombstone Provincial Park. I think it's Provincial Park up in the Yukon Territory. Beautiful place if you haven't been up there. And then we brought also a map. This map here that's up on the screen, so we can get a little closer, and you can see on here. Nice if I do this thing right. So, and this is up the Dempster Highway. Oh, I guess I got a pointer on this thing too. So yeah, this is the Dempster Highway. And there's not necessarily like a really good put-in spot. It took us a little while to find a place to start. And you end up paralleling the Blackstone right in here. And as we drove past this, as we were going down the road looking at the Blackstone and seeing how bony it really was a little like, this should be interesting. So we ended up going down the Blackstone, got to the confluence here where it forms the Peel River, and then this is the Ogilvie right here, and we hiked back up the Ogilvie, back to the road. But one of our the basic plans when we plan the river trips up in the Yukon is just trying to make it fairly easy and inexpensive. A lot of the trips, like anyone knows, doing any fly in and fly out gets really expensive. And we looked at doing the Porcupine and ending up in Old Crow, so just north of the Arctic Circle. That was our original plan, but the cost of flying out of Old Crow was just didn't really pan out. So this was our friend Michael's suggestion. Yeah. Yeah, this is Michael. There was pretty much no, hey, what do we do this? Okay. And we kind of ran it from there. So Michael, Mina, their daughter, yeah, 2.5 years old. Jessica, sorry, technology, me. Selwyn, Maria, I love that picture. Hey, look what I got. And Pelly. We have 2 dogs. We do have a theme going, and you'll see on the map. She's named after the Pelly River, our first extended trip we've done. Selwyn is named after the Selwyn Mountain Range on the eastern side of the Yukon Territory. That we've been close to. So here we brought a copy of our map, and this is pretty much the route we took and going down, and we did this every day, trying to figure out where we were. Day 1 starts off pretty much like every other day. Wow, look at it, it's nice out. It should be not too bad. Get to the put-in. Maria and Michael went to drop off the truck up the road. It was like a 3-hour Yeah, it was about 3 or so hours for that turnaround for them to get back. So Jessica and I loaded our boats up. The boat in the front, Hellman, is ours. Michael, Jessica's in the back. As we're loading the boats, the weather started to turn, and started off the adventure just right. Yeah. So bringing certain provisions with us. And you don't really get a good sense. So right after we started, we got the boats packed, and then Maria and Michael showed back up. A pretty strong front came through. We were getting a tailwind coming from upriver, just pushing down. So the second we started out, it's pretty thin, and right off the bat, everything started off. We're moving pretty quick and pretty hard bends and turns. And trying to get the communication down. We hadn't really done any paddling until we got on here, so all of a sudden, draw, pry, everything just was like, no, wait, the other side, no, that side, no, oh my God. So there was a bit of nervous. We were all nervous because it was very pushy, and the boats were really heavy, and it's just pouring rain. So there we got, like a day around here. And just another, everybody's still smiling. And we only made it, the road is not very far away. This is pretty much where we decided, you know what, we're gonna call it in our first camp. And this is just across the creek. We went up a side drainage, found camp. We cook pretty much off of a fire. We cook off of a fire. Breakfast and dinner, everything's done off of with wood, and they have dry wood in the Yukon. I don't know if you guys know that.
Dry wood?
Yeah, exactly. That's the Well, here it takes a year or two. So yeah, it's wonderful. Find standing dead. We'll take them down, and we're just hauling some over, and that's our first camp. Not the best camp, but it was what we could take for the first day. And also, yeah. If you have any questions while I go along, please just ask. This is pretty low key, I think.
No questions there.
Yeah. Yeah, grayling. Yeah, the fish were all over the place. It was great. Beautiful fish. And this was right near the camp, right near the tent. And one of the things, it's almost as big as Selwyn. And amazingly enough, for how remote we were, we didn't see one large animal at all. Usually we'll see wolves, moose, bear, brown and black, caribou, but this time we didn't see anything, which was really strange, right? We expected to see something. And the other thing with the Blackstone and the Ogilvie, this isn't it's in this version of the book we brought, Paddling the Yukon. That's kind of, we're going to say, our Bible, but it doesn't show. I don't think it shows up in some of the newer editions. There was one that's in this one that wasn't. I was thinking it was the Blackstone, but this route that we did wasn't a very popular route, so you're not seeing anybody. You see a couple signs of folks, in our camp, trying to get out of the rain. Yeah, and it's just spectacular as you get into the mountains, as you go downstream. It was just awesome. One of the things we wish we had more time to do would have been to really stop and spend more time at our campsites and hike. This was really just a paddling trip, and none of us had been in this area before, so it was something we still get a good idea and check out. Just one of our little stops, and more of the same scenery. Yeah, again, these waves are huge, but they don't really look that big here. So, but from a canoe, they definitely are bigger. I was pretty stressed out most of the time. Yeah, we'll tell you that story. Yeah, Michael and Jessica, Mina, they have a lot more experience than we do, a lot more efficient also, so typically they're in front. Um, yeah, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful area. And a lot of time to play. These guys had a great time. It was a lot of fun. And it's the Ogilvie range that we ended up going through.
How high are the ridges?
You know, I'll have to look on here. Yeah, it's all meters. I can't do the conversion. No. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, everything in here, we're looking at about 1,500 meters. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that, you know, when you read some of the information on it, and there isn't that much out there with the Blackstone, they do talk about the ease of the hikes and stuff. It's just climb up, head up the ridge, and the undergrowth isn't really that thick. One of our sandbars, more wood collecting. Sorry for the. Yeah, and this was trying to keep them contained as much as we can. The bugs, every campsite was different. The bugs were really bad at some spots and not so bad at others. But Michael and Jessica brought this screen tent, which really was great. Oh, and that's just upstream. We came from up there. There's a lot of pie that I think Jessica made that. Camp.
Freeze dry or?
No, so we'll make yeah, everything was prepped and made beforehand. Oh, yeah, we end up gaining weight to some extent on these trips. We eat pretty well. Little entertainment. Yeah, that camp was great. That was a really nice spot. So, and you know, most of the time, again, a lot of our pictures, and we have some of Jessica's in here too, are really from, you know, camp or when we took breaks and everything. When trying to paddle downstream, try to take the picture. I had a camera on my life vest, but just trying to get the photograph was kind of hard with trying to paddle and avoid rocks and sweepers and stuff. And yeah, and this is mostly the weather we had. We just overcast. You know, and Leo, he was about 2 rivers over to the east of us at this time also. So he was doing his river trip at the same time we were doing this one. And Selwyn woke up, he was the last one up every day. And some days we'd take apart the whole tent around him while he's still sleeping. No. And I broke my toe. This is the second time I've done it. On the Beaver Stewart River we did a few years ago, I broke a toe there.
How do you do that? Barefoot? What happened?
I had waders on and a pair of Chacos, and we got to, the river split. We ended up going down this, it was like, well, this way or this way, and both routes didn't really look that great, but we chose route to the left, and it narrowed up through the alders and stuff. We came around a corner, and it was kind of a hard bend. It looked like it was going to be difficult to maneuver through, and I thought it was shallow enough, so I jumped out of the boat, and it wasn't. I ended up topping my waders, and somehow, some way, I broke my toe in trying to grab the canoe, because you know, Maria and Selwyn are up front, and I was trying to grab the canoe before it went into it was like a sweeper there. And after the fact, Maria's looking at me like, yeah, whatever. After the fact, yeah, we both looked at it like, oh yeah, we would have been fine. But a little bit of stress on the trip. Yeah, now I have a story to tell. And At it again. And yeah, there's our boat. And those are Jessica's photographs. But again, the scenery is just spectacular. I mean, it was, and what that was some of our stuff we talked about was you're constantly paddling and constantly seeing, trying to avoid any rocks or sweepers or anything. And Michael's scouting the next one. It's pretty draining, and you're always looking downstream and trying to take that break to look around. And this was one of the ones that was, we just lined around it. And it was mostly, typically this is some of the obstacles we dealt with. It's just a matter of getting, it's a hard bend, everything's pushing into the bank, and really trying to make that maneuver and getting pushed into the sweepers just didn't seem like a good option. So most of the time we were just lining down something like that and enjoying the sand. And this is Pelly. Well, here's one of our birds. So Pelly's stalking after a raven. And yeah, Mina had a great time. After lunch, she's pretty much passed out and sleeping in the boat. Maria hard at work. Selling it. And those poles are great. They really work well. Yeah. And yeah, and most everything just camping out on the beaches. It was, really, really nice. And keeps you out of the bugs too. If you get any downstream or upstream wind, it was wonderful. And then Pelly is in here taking advantage of the little bit of sun. Everything, I'd say, just about freezing every night. And rebounding probably in the 50s. And some day, well, that one day was really warm when we started upstream.
So you didn't bring any gas stove at all? You did all your cooking?
Nope, we didn't. We've packed like on other trips we've packed like a jet boil.
For like a soup at lunch or something like that.
Or coffee.
We did it so early in the year.
Yeah.
We couldn't bring anything.
Yeah. So everything, and there were a couple sites where we would pack some of the wood that we, cut and split, and we just kind of would bring along with us as we got lighter. Hard kid life.
So you didn't do walk at night or anything?
No.
A ton of sign, especially
Yeah.
when we were tracking upstream.
Mm-hmm.
The wildlife was using the same route that we were. We see caribou tracks and wolf tracks.
And everything was fairly fresh, but we just never saw any of them. Yeah, it was kind of odd. Yeah, and just again, every bend there's just something different. It was wonderful. And yeah, those are some of our hazards.
Sweepers for 10 years to come.
Yeah, and and one of the things we saw too was in the spring there must have been a really big flood through there, because there was some fresh debris up really, really high up on the banks that was really impressive, and I'm glad we weren't there for that. More. She had it pretty good in the afternoon. And we had it pretty good too. Doesn't really work that. Yeah, and again, we get to these points where it just looks like it's going right into the rock. And this one, I remember, it looked worse than it actually was. It was a really pretty easy maneuver to get around that, but it was kind of going straight into it and then back out. And there was a few more. Unfortunately, we don't have any pictures of some of this stuff because we didn't have time, but there were definitely a few hydraulics on the river that were pretty sketchy. Yeah, that's pretty much. And this was one of my favorite campsites too. Is just beautiful right here. With the rocks and the formation there was awesome. It was a quick night for us. That thunderstorm that came through came through pretty fast and stayed for a little bit, and we all just hunkered down and called it good. No, we thought about it a little bit, but there just wasn't any of.
It came up a little bit.
Yeah.
We kind of wanted it to come up and so bony.
Yeah, but not anything that like flash flood or any of that. We just weren't really getting like this system formed pretty quickly and then went through. It lingered throughout the evening, but not upstream. It kind of really formed over us and stayed, I want to say, like ahead of us in some respects. And the downpours were okay, but not anything real massive. I think this is Jessica's photos from their tent, some of the northern lights.
It might be coming out tonight, by the way.
Yeah. Oh. And it was pretty hard to find our route. Trying to figure out where we were. We didn't make it very far the first day, and it was. Or the second. Yeah, or the second. So we were guessing, the map, the topo maps that we had, the time frame they were pretty old in some respects, the database or whatever. So there were some questions on how accurate they were. They were pretty good. It just took us a little while to figure out where exactly we were. And mostly for us, we had a timeline to be out. So that was, Michael and Jessica didn't really have a timeline. They were kind of running on ours. So yeah, and it's true. No, we're here. Where? Whoops. Uh-oh. It made it green. Green, all right? Green means go. All right. But yeah. Yeah, Mina really liked Pelly. Pelly really liked Mina.
Did the dog pick up on animals at night or anything, or smell anything?
Yeah, she. Who knows what? So there was a few times, and it's that bit of a stress because someone's asleep, and we're like, all right, good, someone's asleep, and Pelly starts, growling or barking or whatever. And we're like, wait, don't. Shh. Yeah. Yeah, she was the choice. We have two dogs, so you guys know. She was the one we chose to bring, and we didn't bring the other dog. It wouldn't be like that. We'd have more issues. Yeah, and the hiking is just, just looked spectacular. And again, we didn't have a chance to do anything further away from camp and a hard doggy life. Yeah, and this was one of our bigger spots getting through. And that was the morning, yeah, Michael decided, I was like, I'm not going to wear waders. And I think he fell in here. Which is, it slipped a little bit. Someone did really well, he enjoyed it. Whoops. And that's the same thing. And you know, the whole time as we went too, you could see the leaves changing. That was kind of neat. It was fairly noticeable. You know, we're kind of moving off in a northeasterly direction, and you know, not too much in the sense of the fall colors when we started. And as we went along, it really started to show up. And another day of storms. Keeping the kids contained. And this is our last campsite in the mountains. We were coming out of the mountains after this one, and everything kind of changed. And we're heading out there. And then basically we end up going down here, and then we'll hike on the other side of this ridge line. And it was kind of, when we started coming back upstream, you could still see some of these mountains. Dirty and muddy. And these are the campsites we really enjoyed, nice and soft and flat, and mud to play in. Yeah. Yeah. And this is pretty much when we come out of the mountains and back out onto the flats. We've got one more, pretty much this is our last day going downstream. So we did about 135 kilometers downstream. And we're basically expecting to be doing about 25 kilometers up the Ogilvie, but it wasn't. It was longer. And yeah, these are Jessica's. Yeah, the pictures just don't. I mean, the pictures are alright, but it was just spectacular. Really, the formations and everything. And great rocks to skip the whole time down. And you can see these are, you know, some of the debris and the sweepers all the way down. There was a few real hairy spots in this, and that when we came out of the mountains and came out on the flats, that was a hard day. I was tired, but there was fishing. And this is the camp just before we get out. And we brought this, and never doubt your wife. When you pick up the 5-pound thing of, yeah, really. You pick up the 5-pound thing of plaster of Paris, and you know, as you're loading the canoe up at the beginning, like, really? It worked out awesome. They did some castings. We brought the castings of the wolf print. Yeah, it's, and then, yeah. Yeah. And view of rocks. Sorry. Yeah, this was a pretty good spot. And I think this is where Selwyn saw the Northern Lights. We got him up on this site. Right? Yeah, it does all run together. I did have the panic on days trying to figure out, wait, how many days? Is that right? That's all we caught. I didn't see anything else. You know, Michael was definitely the fisherman. I just throw it out there and see what comes out. I'm still learning a lot. But yeah, that's mostly everything we caught was just the graylings. And then more moose. And this is the confluence. This is the Blackstone here, and this is the Ogilvie, and this is what they form the Peel River. So you can continue downstream, but not too many folks do it. There's a really large canyon that you can't get through. You have to portage around, and I think the distance around is a few miles. I remember
I think it's like 5 miles.
Yeah. Yeah, so some people do the portage, but it's when you read the description and you see some of the photographs of that canyon, yeah, no. So yeah, we ended up, this is where we start going upstream, and this is the Ogilvie right here. And for the most part, we had nice gravel bars to kind of maneuver and get upstream.
How many miles from the confluence did Flight live?
We thought it was going to be 25 kilometers, but it ended up being somewhere around 50 kilometers. So, yeah. And yeah, you guys notice the rocks we brought? That was, you're supposed to be getting lighter at the end. We collected rocks, which is great. No, and this is, yeah, so we just end up lining the boat. And one of the things I learned was we set up a bridle on the boat right here to keep that front line, pretty much keeping that bow up. So as you go upstream and you get, yeah. Remember, you're being recorded. Small. He wants money. So it keeps the bow of the canoe up a little more, so when you start going through some of the white water, I guess to say, it keeps it up and a little more maneuver. You want that, most of your load centered, so there's evenly distributed.
So you can't do the pond or something that puts it out of the pad.
Yeah, so there's a line that goes right here, and it goes right around the bow and around, and then I just tie like a butterfly knot right there, and then tie this line off to that. And this is connected to the front seat. I just have it tied off to the front seat.
Held underneath the curve of the bow.
Yeah, exactly. And there might be a better picture. Yep, that's it right there. Sometimes someone sat in it, but not very often. He pretty much hiked the whole way. There's a couple shoulder rides, but he did the whole thing, and and it's really not that bad. It looks worse than it actually is.
Is it out in the current?
Yes. Yeah, so you end up, you keep that at an angle, and that's the other, you have the stern line and the bow line, and really you're just pulling it by the one hand, and you can just twist your hand a little bit to help get the boat to either come in a little bit or go out a little bit, and you try to find that happy spot in the whole thing. Yeah, it was No, it was awesome. You know, it was great. No, there was definitely some discomfort, but it was all right. Because it's, you know, there's not much you can do for the toe, and you know, but that's the other thing is when it's like this, it's not bad. There's other spots where it got worse, and again we'd see, you know, some of the tracks of some of the animals in the area, and we didn't. I was just gonna, yeah. Yeah. Wait, where are you guys going? Don't leave me here. Yeah, and some days, I mean, this is what I'm seeing. I'm pulling the canoe, and then I'd see everybody up there. But yeah, there's, you get that angle as the water's coming downstream. You just get that angle, and at too much angle, then it's a lot harder, obviously. I mean, yeah, with a bunch of rocks in it. And yeah, this whole, you'll see this mountain, just this hillside, in a lot of the pictures. That was hard, you know, seeing the same. And at one point, when we near the end, you start seeing the road, and it doesn't get close very fast. There's big gravel bars, and so, and what we'd end up doing was you end up hiking along this, and when the gravel bar ends, then you ferry across to the next gravel bar, and then start the whole process over. Keep the lines tied. Everything's still tied up and together, but it's just a matter of ferrying back and forth, you know, ferry one gravel bar to the other and hike up.
What miles did you make in a day with hiking?
I don't remember. The last day, I think, was the longest. How many miles did we go that last day? Do you remember? 10. Yeah. Because again, we were trying to make the state fair, and we had tickets for the Abbott brothers. So next time we're gonna do the show before the trip, and then do the trip afterwards. And this was one. We had a camp here. We stopped for the night here, but this is as far as we can get, and then we just ferry the boats across. Everybody gets in, we ferry across to this gravel bar, and then walk up. You know, right here you can walk up, but then up in here it's maybe chest or shoulder deep, something like that. And the water was beautiful. It was very clear. You could see a ton. And the rocks were, you know, as you go over the gravel, it was awesome. Nice, healthy breakfast. This day was cold and rainy, so that was an awesome breakfast. And there's that hill again. You don't get really away from it. That didn't last very long. He didn't go very far. And it's a little hard in the morning when it's all, you know, raining and kind of chilly, and then you have to be like, all right, we're going upstream. And these are one of the more challenging spots. This was kind of tricky. It's not too deep right in here. You know, the river, the deep spots over on this side, and it looked like what we could figure too is this is a relatively new channel. It didn't, at least what we could figure on the ground, everything looks like it just cut through this fairly recently. And I think we got the next, and the water is cranking right through here, and this was big, big root wad and everything to try to get the boats around. Plus we're in the main current to try to get them around and get them up on that side. We had to load the boats in the main current and then try to ferry over to this gravel bar. So that was a stressful moment for everybody, Michael, Jessica, and me and Maria. The kids were fine. We made it. For the most, yeah, there was just a couple spots where, Maria and Selwyn and Jessica and Mina would go up into the woods a little bit, and either I could paddle a little ways upstream or drag the boat up, and might have been like waist deep or whatnot. And that one new channel I had, that was one of those weird spots. It was mostly like this, but there was a couple tricky spots. It's still there. And then there's some shallow spots. There's that hill again. And the break. And this, I remember this spot too. We ended up, there's a couple channels coming down over here, and it was trying to figure out what's the best way to go, because you had pretty much 3 different, almost looked like main channels, and pick one. And this is pretty good too. I mean, these are the mountains we were in before we came through, just on the other side of the ridge. And yeah, again, we were just to the other side of these guys when we came down the Blackstone. And there's a ladybug. Yeah, this was one of my favorite spots too. That was a good spot. Yeah, luckily we didn't have to try to line through this type of stuff for the most part. It was all just nice gravel bar. Yeah, not the best fire. And back at it. Day 10 we got out. It took us 11 days, so this is the last. And this is where it got a little more difficult. When the water channeled up and was running a little faster, it got a little worse. Felt wading boots was definitely the key. Michael had felt boots. I had the Chacos. The rocks all the way up the Ogilvie were really, really slippery, and that kind of sucked. It was like the two. Yeah. That's. That'd been perfect. Where were you earlier?
Yeah, right. Now, apparently the Yukon doesn't have a restriction on cells.
Right. I don't think there's been really many restrictions. Yeah. There was. We ended up bumping into him. There's one RCMP officer that runs the Dempster Highway, and we saw him at Tombstone Campground, and he's the Lone Ranger for that whole section. It's huge.
So you never saw a person on the whole river?
Nope.
Wow.
No, what we were getting though was we would occasionally see some color in the rocks from somebody else's boat that could have. Oh, another question.
Why is Dad doing that?
Yeah, we'd see there. So there's a. If you do this river, you'll see tons of blue from our boat dragging up, and we were seeing a lot of green and a little bit of red from somebody else's boat. But it's hard to say when they did it. And some of it's really, and it goes back to some of the higher water. They did it when it was higher water, at least we think, because their scrape marks are, nowhere near where we were walking up. So.
Any cabins?
There was one camp. We saw a tarp up on a kind of a little bluff. about on day 2, but it didn't look like anyone was there. And there was one cabin about a mile or so from the takeout, and that's it. And this was one of those other little spots that, of course, I'm standing back taking the picture. But yeah, this was one, Maria, Wessel, and Mina, and Jessica walked through the woods off to the left, and you could see the winds were cranking too. So we had this coming from upstream, these really, really heavy winds. And nice thing, these guys' boat, I forgot the brand that they have. It sits really low in the water. Ours sits really high, so this spot was tricky because we had to solo paddle up through here, and with those winds, it just made it much more of a challenge. There's that ridge. This was a really neat, we knew we were getting maybe somewhat close, but still had one more day felt like we were getting closer, but all the rocks in here, they just had tons of fossils in them. As you're walking along, you look down, and it's just all types of fossils all through this whole section. And we just walked right along here, all the way through. And this was our last big day. Yeah, it was long. Yes, Ellen did. Mina is 2.5, so she walked a little bit, but Jessica's mostly carrying her. She rode in the boat a little bit, but not too much either. Yeah. You try to get them to do hiking around here right now, though. And yeah, back. That's again. Those are the Blackstones on the other side of these guys here. So yeah, and there's occasional shoulder rides. And this is near the end. There's the truck, and that was, yeah. And that right there is the Dempster Highway. And that's the end. The Ogilvie this is the Ogilvie going down, head downstream, and then the Blackstones off into these mountains here. We came through these mountains, and then came back up there. Packing everything. And it's just started pouring down rain. Anybody talked to Leo, who's near the end of his trip? This is the same storm that he had at the end of his trip. And it just started, the temperatures dropped, and it got just pouring rain. The winds kicked up. The drive back down to Dawson was I had 2 boats on the roof, and then driving down, it was really windy. Maybe. Yeah, sometimes at night, I don't like to get out of the tent. Yeah, that was Mina's.
So what were the dates since you did this?
Maria?
I think we left on the 15th.
August?
Yeah.
And we put in on the 17th.
Yep.
We got out about the 27th, but we
Yep. Yeah. And the drive back down. And the other thing too is we got into there's a hotel at the end of the Dempster Highway. You know, we've been on the river for so many days. We're really tired, and the hotel was full, and so we pushed on another 45 minutes to Dawson, and you know, Dawson's a tourist town and stuff. They have lots of hotels. They were booked solid. There weren't any rooms available. They found one room that we all jammed into at one hotel, and we got it in at 2 in the morning. So we just hiked upstream and then just drove a few hours down the Dempster Highway and got in at 2 in the morning. And this is the next morning, kind of unpacking and separating the 2 boats on the top of the truck. And all right, you had to throw some type of bird. What are they? That's right. Write that down.
Surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the parts of the river, and that's it.
Wow.
So.